from the MMN commune, the true crime cult with all of the sing-alongs and none of the siren gas. I'm Angelina, and I'm hanging out with my pal Aurora, the real housewife of true crime. How's your week going?
Well, I am counting down the days until our reunion.
Yes, it's happening so soon. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, I guess Aurora and I will be hanging out together for the first time in many months, way too long.
We will be already cuddled down in our matching pajamas watching a horror movie with snacks from Trader Joe's.
Oh my God. That really sounds like heaven. I just can't.
Right? Please believe that I went shopping this past weekend at Trader Joe's and got every single pumpkin themed thing I could find, from like pumpkin muffins to pumpkin butter. They had like pumpkin mini pretzels. Like, I don't even know what that means.
That sounds
those
great.
I'm not sure if I got or not. I forget. But don't worry. There's also pumpkin tortilla chips.
Oh, what? That is weird as hell, but I will try it. I'm so down for a pumpkin feast.
I don't know that it needed to happen, but it did.
Well, hey, I mean, I won't complain. I think anyone getting extra festive, like, that's fine. You know, if you want to venture out and do something super weird, I'll try it.
Yeah.
It's right into the festivities.
Agreed. And they also have pumpkin spice oat milk. Like in placement of like a creamer kind of thing for milk or for coffee.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would totally put that in my coffee.
Yeah, I only got it for coffee. I feel like, when am I going to drink milk? As a 40-year-old woman, but
it is kind of weird drinking milk. I also drink milk, though, if I eat cookies. I don't know if you ever do that, but I still like to dip a cookie.
Oh, well, good, because I got us pumpkin flavored, I forget what they call their Oreos. They're like Joe-O's or something.
Okay.
I forget. Someone's going to ask us about that. But.
Okay, well, I mean, let us know, and then we'll eat them.
We will be dipping them into our pumpkin spice milk.
Pumpkin cookie, pumpkin milk.
Yes.
While watching like movies with pumpkins and pumpkin. We should get pumpkin pajamas too. Just become pumpkins.
Let's get like a matching PJ set for every day you're here.
I love that. That is so great.
Yeah. And we're also going to be sharing an Airbnb with a good friend of ours, CJ from Beyond the Rainbow, who's also going to be at the festival. And it just occurred to me that we have to bring our PJs to the Airbnb. So CJ will be like, what in the world?
It's going to be like, what kind of weirdos did I agree to share a space with this weekend?
Right. And I just realized we should get some for CJ.
Oh, yeah. Surprise. You're in a creepy, like, sleepover cult.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Sleepover cult.
Yeah, we might as well have multiple cults on the go. What the hey?
Yeah. Well, of course, we consider all of our listeners to be honorary monsters, but if you'd like to make it official, you can join the MMN commune at patreon.com/murdermurdernews. Make a monthly pledge of whatever amount you like, whether you've got a few extra bucks or a few hundred. And to show how much we appreciate your support, we'll give you a shout out on the show, give you a cool title like Grandmaster of Goats, and you'll have exclusive access to our regular patron-only content. We just want to give a shout out to our newest patron and first ever mystagogue of goats, Mimi. Welcome to our cult, Mimi. Let's get some braids in your hair before you cuddle down with your very own baby goat we have named Henrietta.
We also want to give a shout out to Fiona for buying us some coffee through Buy Me a Coffee. We appreciate you and have a flower crown with your name on it. Thank you for your support. For those of you who would like to help us keep the true crime lights on, but Patreon doesn't seem like a good fit, you can always make a one-time donation at buymeacoffee.com/murdermurder. Let's kick things off with a look at some of the true crime stories that have been making headlines this week.
A Colorado man has been charged with second-degree kidnapping after a failed kidnapping attempt of a 10-year-old from her school in Thornton, Colorado. 28-year-old Diego James Gettler allegedly approached the girl while she was sitting in front of her school on her steps, not long after she was dropped off by her mom. According to the girl, Diego asked if she went to the school and then walked behind her on the steps. He made her uncomfortable, so she stood up to walk inside the school. Just then, Diego grabbed her by the waist from behind. She screamed, and Diego covered her mouth with his hand. She attempted to fight him off and pulled down the mask he was wearing. This scared him and he put her down and ran off. Security cameras at the school caught footage of Diego fleeing from the scene in his gray Southern Aura, and his parents later recognized him in the security footage released by the police. His parents went down to the police station to turn him in, stating they believed their son was the man in the surveillance video.
This week, there may have been a break in an infamous 58-year-old case. On June 16, 1964, 12-year-old Keith Bennett disappeared while walking to his grandmother's house in Manchester, England. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley later confessed to murdering Keith during a string of murders now known as the Moores murders, but the child's body was never found. Just this past week, author Russell Edwards, long fascinated by Keith's case, led a private dig near Eagle Rock, an area of the Moors where many of Brady and Hindley's victims were buried. While digging around to take soil samples, Russell believes he may have found a child's skull that could possibly belong to Keith. Cheryl Hughes, a senior officer with Greater Manchester Police, said, "Following information received, which indicated that potential human remains had been found on the moors, specialist officers have today resumed excavation of a site identified to us." The dig continues at the site in hopes of finding Keith's remains. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break from one of our favorite Darkcast podcasts.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. I'm CJ, host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. My episodes focus on crimes committed by and against the LGBTQ community. I've covered cases you probably have heard of, such as Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, as well as some lesser-known cases like the murder of Ray Hainish, the Australian gay beat murders, and the suspicious disappearance of Lisa Lynn Stone. I cover cases brought to me by listeners like Penny Brummer, who I believe was wrongfully convicted, taboo cases such as lesbian corrective rape and murder in South Africa, and Pray the Gay Away camps. I discuss gay serial killers, women who pretend to be men to hook up with other women, and trans murders. I'm opinionated and uncensored. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but surely I'm someone's shot at tequila. No matter what your gender or orientation in life might be, please join me as I tackle rainbow crimes in search of unicorn justice. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.
And we're back.
This is your final reminder that we'll be at the Pacific Northwest True Crime Fest this weekend, October 8th and 9th at the Green River Conference and Event Center in Auburn, Washington. Don't miss our very first and very special live podcast episode on Sunday morning at 10:45, and you can visit us at our table all weekend long. You'll find a link to where you can get your tickets in today's episode notes and on all of our social media pages, and you'll use code MM15 for 15% off.
Before we dig in, we want to offer a quick disclaimer. Though we joke about forming a true crime cult, that is not to diminish the severity of actual cult activity, and we want you to know that we take the cases we're discussing very seriously.
We want to deliver each story with the utmost respect to victims and anyone involved. If you feel we've missed the mark, you don't like our tone, or if you notice we've gotten any details wrong, let us know with a quick email to murdermurdernews@gmail.com and we'll make it right.
Some specific trigger warnings for this episode include homophobia, graphic descriptions of violence, sexual assault, and talk of suicidal thoughts. If any of those subjects are particularly sensitive for you, feel free to skip this one and listen to one of our other episodes instead.
24 years ago today, 21-year-old Matthew Shepard was attacked and left for dead in what has become one of the most notorious anti-gay hate crimes in American history. Shortly after midnight on October 7th, 1998, two men Matthew met in a bar, tied him to a fence in a remote field, and then mercilessly beat him. His story became headline news almost immediately, and while Matthew's death did help bring about federal hate crime legislation and open up important conversations about homophobia, somewhere Matthew got lost in the story. His friends and family have fought to keep his legacy alive, and today we want to talk more about him and his incredible life cut far too short. Our sources for today include the documentary Matthew Shepard is a Friend of Mine, directed by his longtime friend, Michelle Hosway, MatthewShepard.org, The Meaning of Matthew, My Son's Murder and Laramie in a World Transformed by Judy Shepard, Vanity Fair, and more. For a full list of our sources, check out our show notes.
Matthew, who went by Matt, was born on December 1st, 1976 in Casper, Wyoming, to his parents, Dennis and Judy. He had a younger brother, Logan, who was 4 years younger than him, and his mom said they couldn't have been more different. Matt had always been small at 5'2" and 110 pounds, even as an adult. Logan was tall and athletic, and Matt not so much. But what Matt lacked in size, he made up for in personality. In a journal as a kid, Matt wrote that he was sensitive, honest, and sincere, and friends certainly agree. He also wrote, quote, "I love helping. I love smiling." His mom said he loved making people feel better. She recalled that he had an interest in poetry for a while. He would write poems on postcards for his neighbors and leave them in their mailboxes. He loved acting and was in drama clubs from a young age. He was talented and knew he would be famous one day. As a kid, he dreamed of being a politician, and he was intrigued by politics his whole life. His childhood hairstylist remembers him coming in for a haircut in the 2nd grade and reminding her to vote. Not only that, but he knew all of the issues on the ballot that year as a 7-year-old. She believed he was going to grow up to be president, and everyone around him recognized his charisma.
Judy, his mom, said she first believed Matt was gay when he was 8 years old. He wanted to go as Dolly Parton for Halloween, and while she doesn't like the idea of stereotyping kids' sexual orientations based on their love of Dolly, it still felt to her like it was a possibility. She said it was his favorite costume, and not only did he recycle it year after year for Halloween, he would also dress up like the country star around the house, even when it wasn't spooky season. The first person Matt came out to was his guidance counselor, Walt Bolden. He told Walt he believed he was gay, and Walt asked him what it would mean if it was true. Matt was emotional when he told him he believed that being gay would lead his family to reject him. In 1993, when Matt was in 10th grade, his dad accepted a job as an oil safety engineer at Saudi Aramco, a gas company in Saudi Arabia. This was a big move for the family, and Judy and Dennis wanted their kids to have a bigger worldview than what they would have living in Wyoming or even in the U.S. in general. At the time, there weren't any American schools in Saudi Arabia, so Matt went to a boarding school, Tassis, formerly known as the American School in Lugano, Switzerland.
Matt made new friends and adjusted to his new life in Switzerland very easily. It was here that he met lifelong best friend, Zaina Barkawi, and Michelle Hosway, who later went on to make the Emmy Award-winning film Matt Shepard is a Friend of Mine, which we highly recommend watching on Amazon. His friends have said that while at Tassis, they were struck by his ability to blend in with any crowd. He was preppy, put together, and had such an easy time making friends. Many remember him as truly the life of every party. He loved to go out dancing and was super fashionable. He always looked people in the eyes and got to know them, and was voted friendliest in his class. He was in school plays and was on track to becoming an actor, and no one doubted he would, in fact, be famous someday. Because of his friendliness, he was elected as peer counselor at his school. Everyone knew him as being easy to talk to and very accepting of any differences.
His love of politics continued throughout high school, especially with his new expanded worldview. He loved reading the news and wanted to make an impact. He also loved languages and took German and Italian. Matt seemed to thrive with his new life in Switzerland, but he still didn't feel safe and comfortable coming out to his friends at that time. None of his friends in high school knew he was gay. While studying at Tassis, the school encouraged students to take trips and see more of the world. Matt traveled throughout Europe, Japan, and Morocco. His group of friends were actually the first group from the school to travel to Morocco and were so excited to see part of Africa. The school initially had its doubts and worried for their safety. Matt and his friends enjoyed taking in the new culture, trying the food, and shopping the markets. But things took a serious turn for Matt while on that trip, which would impact him for the rest of his life.
One night, he went for a walk on his own. He had woken up at some point, unable to sleep. He walked to a coffee shop where he chatted with some German students. Around 2 a.m., Matt banged on the doors of the place he was sharing with a friend. His friend opened the door to a disheveled Matthew who had been crying. His shirt and shoes were missing. Matthew confided in her that 6 men had pulled him into an alley. They robbed him and raped him. Matt reported his rape to local police, but the perpetrators were never caught. Matt believed the officers had been kind to him and were trying to help him. He stayed with his parents in Saudi Arabia and went to therapy. He started to experience symptoms of PTSD, including panic attacks, anxiety, flashbacks, nightmares, and depression. His friends and family noted how Matt changed after his sexual assault as the result of PTSD. His posture changed. He no longer stood confidently. He no longer wanted to do theater. He couldn't stand to be in big crowds. He was, at times, suicidal. Matt was living his life in fear of what had happened to him. Unfortunately for Matt, this was only one of many times he experienced violence from strangers in his life.
When Matt graduated from high school in 1995, he moved back to the U.S. He started college at Catawba College in Salisbury, North Carolina in the fall. While there, he came out to his mom, Judy, on the phone while she was in Saudi Arabia. She said he sort of just blurted it out. Matt had been afraid of his family rejecting him, but we already mentioned Judy had thought Matt might be gay since childhood, so she was very supportive of him. According to Judy, quote, "He said he didn't choose to be gay. Nobody would choose to be gay. It was a very hard life. You're lonely, you're scared, you're discriminated against. He was searching for a way to be happy with it. He was worried we'd be embarrassed or ashamed. I told him to quit putting words in my mouth. He would feel guilty and extra burden, but he knew we would always be there for him no matter what. There was never any question of that." And just as an aside, Matt's parents are just so lovely. Like they have been such an advocate for him. And I did read like in one article that a friend of his had said that his parents didn't understand it. So there was some kind of like miscommunication or he felt like they wouldn't like it or whatever. But as far as you can tell from Judy and the dad, like they were so kind and supportive and like really just did not see him as being any different or this as being like any issue for them. Really great parents. Like everybody should have parents like Judy. Even so, Matt was still afraid of his dad's reaction and asked Judy not to tell him. Matt did come out to his dad later, and Dennis had a pretty similar reaction to Judy, basically saying, "I already knew that, so what's the big thing you needed to tell me?" While attending school at Catawba College, Matt had his first serious relationship. Unfortunately, that man was abusive and continuously hurt him.
North Carolina didn't feel like a good fit for Matt, and he transferred to Casper College in Wyoming. There, he was introduced to Romaine Patterson, who was active in LGBTA activities on campus. Romaine moved to Denver, Colorado not long after, and Matt decided to follow her there. He worked as a telemarketer selling vitamins for a while. Romaine was working at a coffee shop, and Matt would come in to visit while she was waitressing. Matt, still able to make friends easily, would talk to random strangers at their tables. He friended an unhoused man and took him to lunch once a week. He was battling depression in Denver, and Romaine took notice. She said he stopped cleaning his apartment, and when she would stop by, it didn't seem like he would have food around. Matt had grown up in the Episcopalian church and even once served as an altar boy. The church has not historically been accepting to members of the LGBTQIA community, and this was something Matt really wrestled with. While in Denver, Matt went to a local church to talk about his sexuality and how it might fit in with his beliefs. Unfortunately, the woman he spoke with told him all gay people go to hell, making the church feel like a very unsafe place for him. We're not sure what denomination of church Matt had gone to for guidance, meeting such unaccepting and hateful counseling. But according to episcopalchurch.org, The church has been working at inclusion for all of God's children since the 70s, and in 1994, they amended the church's canons to prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation. In 2015, they ruled that same-sex couples had the legal right to marry within the church.
Yet the church still includes the following language on their website, quote, "As with all spiritual journeys, everyone walks at their own pace. Some Episcopal congregations are actively involved in LGBTQ ministry, and their arms are wide open. Others are more reserved, but their doors are still open to all. Some are still wrestling with their beliefs and feelings, but we're on this journey together, and the Episcopal Church is dedicated to full inclusion and equality in the church as well as society as a whole." So a little disappointing. It sounds like they're not fully there yet. This must have been a very big blow to Matt, who was still coming to terms with his own sexual identity and managing his depression and PTSD from his rape in Morocco. He just wasn't feeling safe and happy in Denver. Matt was struggling enough that he looked into Charis Community, an assisted living home run by mental health professionals. Though he had long left his high school in Casper, Matt was still very close friends with his old guidance counselor, Walt. Walt suggested that the last place he felt safe was Wyoming, and maybe he should transfer to the University of Wyoming in Laramie. Matt transferred as a political science major with a minor in foreign relations and languages.
Back in Wyoming, Matt started to feel at home again. He joined an LGBT group on campus and wanted to set up a mentoring project for new students to feel at ease being queer in a new place. Matt, who had never felt comfortable being out, could feel safe in this community. In August of 1998, Matt saw his family in person for the last time. They went camping together in Yellowstone and had a really great trip. One night while camping, Matt went to a bar in Cody. Like many survivors of sexual assault, he started taking risks as a way of feeling like he had control over his fear after his rape in Morocco. He had told his mom, quote, "My fear is irrational. I shouldn't be afraid of people." While in Cody, he went out drinking alone and didn't remember much of what happened that night. He woke up the next day to a busted lip. While out, he had flashbacks of his assault in Morocco and believed he may have been raped again. According to a bartender, Matt had hit on him repeatedly, and the bartender lost his temper and hit him. While I don't think we'll ever know the real story of what happened, what the bartender tried to use was the gay panic defense. He freaked out because someone of the same gender hit on him, and then felt he had the right to punch him. I'm sure most of us have been hit on at a bar by someone we wished would leave us alone, but that doesn't give you the right to punch them, at least as long as you still feel safe in the situation.
In the summer of 1998, Matt met a friend, Brian Gooden, and the two had been getting to know each other on AOL. Brian was a 36-year-old optician from Denver, and the two took things slowly. Matt had told Brian he appreciated that he hadn't hit on him directly, and he was also worried about becoming too attached and dependent on Brian. The two made plans to finally meet up when Matt invited him to come and stay in Laramie from October 9th through 12th. Unfortunately, those plans would never happen. Heading into the fall, Matt was struggling to manage school along with his mental health. He would have panic attacks and miss class. His medications weren't always keeping up, which would make it very tempting to self-medicate with alcohol, which in turn would make his mental health worse. He had checked himself into a hospital several times for suicidal thoughts. On Friday, October 12th, Matt made plans to take a limo with a friend, Tina Labrie, from Laramie to Fort Collins, Colorado, about 65 miles away, to head out to a gay bar, Tornado, for the night. There weren't any dedicated gay bars in Laramie, and he didn't want to drink and drive. While at Tornado, Matt and Tina talked for hours. They talked about Matt's guilt of being born into a wealthy family, their plans for the future, and death. Matt told her that if anything ever happened to her and her husband, he would happily take care of her kids, who adored Matt. He also asked her if she would take care of his cat, Clayton, if anything ever happened to him.
The two danced the night away, and a couple of men hit on him throughout the night. Matt was having a good time for a while, but started to feel depressed. The limo driver, Doc O'Connor, remembers meeting Matt that night. Doc owned the limousine company as well as several buildings in nearby Bossler, Wyoming. Matt would not let Doc open the door for him and insisted he call him Matt and not Sir. When Doc picked him up from Tornado, Matt sat in the front and offered to go to Subway with the driver. The two sat and talked about Doc's website and about Matt's dating life. Matt opened up about the incident in Cody where the bartender had punched him. Doc said, quote, "What did you do to the people who beat the shit out of you?" Matt answered, "I forgave them and went on with my life." Matt had learned this philosophy after reading about the apartheid hearings in South Africa. He'd been inspired by Nelson Mandela offering forgiveness as a step towards ending the violence. Matt, always generous, bought Doc's dinner.
On the drive home to Laramie, Matt talked to Tina about his depression. He told her he didn't feel like anyone really cared about him and no one would notice if he died. He opened up to her about a plan he had to overdose on his anxiety meds. Tina stayed on Matt's couch that night to make sure he was safe. On Tuesday, October 6th, the day started like any other. He had class and was prepping for his midterms. He previously had plans with his old guidance counselor, Walt, to go see a movie for his birthday. Around 6:30 p.m., he called Walt saying he couldn't go out for a movie. He was very apologetic and explained that he had to stay in and study for his French exam. Still, he didn't want to disappoint his friend and promised to go see a movie later in the week. Walt wasn't a big birthday person and didn't mind. He saw Matt pretty much every day and knew they would get together soon. Little did he know this would be the last time he would talk to Matt. After his call with Walt, Matt headed to an LGBTA meeting on campus for a planning meeting about an upcoming Gay Awareness Week. After the meeting, the group went to a local restaurant, Village Inn, where Matt had a cherry pie and tried to convince some of his friends in the group to go to a bar, Fireside. Matt even called Doc, the limo driver, to see if he could drive them around. Doc had been busy, but told Matt to call him later and see if his schedule had cleared up.
No one was able to go with Matt, so a friend, Kim, dropped him off at home. Apparently, Matt just wasn't in the mood to study, so he ended up going out alone. It wasn't unlike Matt to go out by himself. Even with his past trauma, he still loved talking to new people and was a regular at Fireside. The bartender that night, Matt Galloway, knew Matt, and the two sat and talked while Galloway worked. Matt had come in around 10:30 p.m. and sat at the bar drinking a Heineken and a cocktail, dressed in jeans and a sports coat, ever fashionable. Matt was polite and friendly like always, and Galloway remembers how easy it was to talk to him. Not long after Matt arrived, two men Galloway didn't recognize came in and ordered a pitcher of beer for $5.50, but paid in dimes and nickels. 22-year-old Aaron McKinney and 21-year-old Russell Henderson were not regulars at the bar, but they were locals. Galloway remembers hoping the two wouldn't stay long enough to order a second pitcher, because no one wants to spend their night counting out nickels and dimes. The two did stick around long after they finished the pitcher. They played pool and at some point came over to the bar. They had seen Matt sitting there, dressed in his sports coat, and they assumed he was wealthy. They also assumed he was gay. It's unclear who initiated the conversation, but the three ended up talking. We do know that Matt was very outgoing, but it's also been suggested that the two strangers had talked to Matt first. After chatting, the two went to the bathroom where they made a plan to pretend they were gay, flirt with Matt, then rob him.
Sometime after midnight on October 7th, 1998, Matt left with Aaron and Russell. It sounds like they offered him a ride home. The three squeezed into the front seat of Aaron's pickup truck with Russell driving. According to Aaron's testimony, which we do not put a lot of stock into, Matt had his hand on his leg and asked where they were going. Aaron said, quote, "Guess what? We're not gay and you're going to get jacked." He started using bigoted terms and hitting Matt. Aaron pistol whipped him with a .357 Magnum. He asked for Matt's wallet and Matt handed it to him. There was only $20 inside. Instead of relenting, dumping Matt off somewhere and getting away with his wallet, they drove him out to the middle of nowhere, east of town, off what is now known as Pilot Peak Road. They stopped in front of a construction site with a wooden buck fence. They dragged him out of the car. They beat him in the head with the butt of the pistol 19 to 21 times, fracturing his skull 4 times. They crushed his skull and brainstem. The final blow that killed him was behind his right ear. Matt had fought back and had injuries to his arms and hands. He also had injuries to his groin. Aaron told Russell to get some rope in the back of his truck. They tied his hands behind his back and then tied him to the fence. They took his shoes and then left him there, tied to the fence, slumped on the ground, unconscious. It was a cold night with temperatures dropping as low as 30 degrees Fahrenheit or -1 Celsius.
After fleeing the scene, Aaron and Russell headed to where they believed Matt lived to rob his apartment. Once there, they ran into 2 men vandalizing cars, and the 4 got into a fight. Aaron hit one of them so hard he fractured his skull. Police arrived, and the 4 men fled. An officer caught Russell and found the bloody pistol in the back of the truck that had been used to beat Matt unconscious. They also found Matt's ID. Wednesday morning, Tina began to worry that she hadn't heard from Matt. He had been in a dark place when she last saw him on Saturday, and she wanted to make sure he was okay. Tina had gotten a cold since their trip to Fort Collins and didn't feel up to going to Matt's apartment. She tried calling him repeatedly and finally decided to call the police for a welfare check on Wednesday night. When she told the police her friend's name, they told her they were sending someone to talk to her. They had recognized his name from the ID found in Aaron's truck. Investigators asked Tina if anyone would want to hurt Matt. They asked her if she knew Aaron McKinney or Russell Henderson. Tina had never heard of them before.
Around 4:25 on the same day, Doc, the limo driver, ran into Kristen Price, the girlfriend of Aaron McKinney. Aaron and Kristen had been living in an apartment attached to a building Doc owned. Doc asked how Aaron was doing, and she responded, quote, "They're going to get him for attempted murder for beating some gay guy up." Doc wasn't sure what to think of that, but he had no idea the gay guy had been his new friend he had just met the weekend before. That night, around 6 p.m., 18-year-old student Aaron Kreefels was riding his mountain bike through Cactus Canyon east of Laramie. He didn't know the area well and was in a hurry to get back to his dorm before it got dark. He hit a rock and went flying off his bike. As he got up, he noticed what looked like a scarecrow in the distance attached to a fence. But something didn't seem right. He walked his bike over to the fence and realized it wasn't a scarecrow. Matt was still tied to the post, barely breathing, and unconscious 18 hours after his brutal attack, having survived a cold night alone.
Aaron Kay ran to the nearest house, which happened to belong to a university professor, Charles Dolan, and Charles called 911. Aaron and Charles ran back to Matt to stay with him while they waited for an ambulance. Sheriff's Deputy Reggie Flutie was the first to arrive to the scene. As Reggie approached Matt, she noticed a doe laying next to him, as though she had been keeping him company. She remembers thinking her victim had only been a child, maybe 13 or 14, because Matt was so tiny and looked even smaller crumpled on the ground. His face was stained red with blood, but there were 2 streaks down his face from tears. There was a large pool of blood under his head. Matt was first taken to a hospital in Laramie, but when it was clear just how extensive his injuries had been, he was transferred to Poudre Valley Hospital in Fort Collins for their more advanced trauma ward. But even that wouldn't be enough to save him. His brainstem, which controls functions such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure, had been severely damaged. Matt was in a coma.
His parents woke up to a phone call in Saudi Arabia at 5 a.m. They were used to getting early morning calls from Matt due to the time difference and answered the phone assuming it was him. The hospital told them Matt had been injured and wasn't going to make it. Their first assumption was it had been a car accident. They rushed to get back to Wyoming to be with him. They barely recognized him when they got to the hospital. He was so swollen from his beating that he didn't look like himself. His fingers were curled from being comatose. He was wrapped in bandages and had so many stitches and tubes. Matt never regained consciousness. There was nothing doctors could do. Surgery would not help him, and Matt was going to die from his injuries. His family wrestled with the decision to take him off life support. They knew there was no way to save him, but they couldn't handle the decision to have to let him go.
Judy called Walt so he could say goodbye. She also wanted him to talk to Matt. Being in a coma, they weren't sure what Matt could hear or perceive around him, but they wanted him to know he was loved and it was okay to let go. On October 11th, Walt came and sat with him and told him he would not be forgotten and he would be famous after all. It was time to stop fighting. Matt died hours later at 12:53 a.m. on October 12th. He died with his family nearby, his mom and brother holding his hands. If you were alive in 1998, you probably remember the media storm that came next, unless maybe you're in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
Initially, police believed Matt had died as a result of a robbery. Walt wasn't buying it. Matt's murder had been a hate crime. He believed his killers had done so because he was gay. He believed if they just wanted his $20, the crime would have looked very different. This crime was brutal and full of rage. Judy was resentful of all the press coverage. This should have been a private moment for her and her family, but now the world was watching and weighing in, making judgments about Matt and starting nasty rumors about him. Victim blaming him, saying he had hit on Aaron and Russell and deserved what he got.
Not only was the news coverage frustrating from the angle of homophobia from the press, but gay rights groups also took Matt's narrative and ran with it in a way that took him out of his own story. No one seemed interested in who Matt really was, just in exploiting his case for their political agenda. Due to the fight Aaron and Russell had gotten into after beating up Matt, police tied the murder to them right away. Aaron went into hiding, but was soon found in an apartment right above his. Aaron and Russell were arrested on October 9th, 3 days before Matt succumbed to his injuries. They were initially charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. After Matt died on the 12th, their charges were upgraded from attempted murder to first-degree murder, putting the death penalty on the table.
Russell's case moved forward first. In April 1999, he pleaded guilty in a pre-trial agreement, which took the death penalty back off the table in exchange for 2 consecutive life sentences. In November of 1999, Aaron's lawyer attempted to put forward a gay panic defense, suggesting Aaron was driven to temporary insanity by alleged sexual advances by Matt. He had claimed in his confession that Matt had grabbed him in the genitals while in the truck, but later claimed Matt had attempted to grab him. Russell did not see anything of that nature take place. This defense was rejected by the judge. The jury found Aaron not guilty of premeditated murder, but guilty of felony murder and considered the death penalty. Matt's parents brokered a deal that resulted in Aaron receiving 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole instead of capital punishment because they believed the time had come for healing. We want to play part of Dennis's powerful victim impact statement.
My son, Matthew, did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner. On October 6th, 1998, my son tried to show the world that he could win again. On October 12th, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero lost. On October 12th, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero died. 50 days before his 22nd birthday. I keep wondering the same thing that I did when I first saw him in the hospital. What would he have become? How could he have changed his piece of the world to make it better? Matt officially died in a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. He actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, tied to a fence. You, Mr. McKinney, with your friend, Mr. Henderson, left him there by himself. But he was not alone. There were his lifelong friends with him. Friends that he had grown up with. You're probably wondering who these friends were. First, he had the beautiful night sky and the same stars and moon we used to see through a telescope. Then he had the daylight and the sun to shine on him. And through it all, he was breathing in the scent of the pine trees from the snowy range. He heard the wind, the ever-present Wyoming wind, for the last time. He had one more friend with him. He had God. And I feel better knowing he wasn't alone. Matt's beating, hospitalization, and funeral focused worldwide attention on hate. Good is coming out of evil. People have said enough is enough. I miss my son, but I am proud to be able to say that he was my son. Judy has been quoted as being against the death penalty. It has been stated that Matt was against the death penalty. Both of these statements are wrong. I, too, believe in the death penalty. I would like nothing better than to see you die, Mr. McKinney. However, this is the time to begin the healing process. To show mercy to someone who refused to show any mercy. Mr. McKinney, I am going to grant you life. As hard as it is to do so, because of Matthew. Every time you celebrate Christmas, a birthday, the 4th of July, remember that Matt isn't. Every time you wake up in your prison cell, remember you had the opportunity and the ability to stop your actions that night. You robbed me of something very precious, and I will never forgive you for that. Mr. McKinney, I give you life in the memory of someone who no longer lives. May you have a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it.
Wow. Yeah, that's really heavy and really just sad, but it's clear, you're talking about Matt's love of poetry and how he was interested in writing like that. And it's clear that that's something that came from his dad, in part at least, because, wow, the things he was saying about just having the company of the night sky, et cetera, is just...
I know. It got me. I cried so much. They played like a new recording of this. They might have like changed it slightly for the movie. Is it my friend Matt Shepard or
Matt Shepard is my friend or something?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I know it. I keep confusing it with my friend Jeffrey Dahmer, which is clearly is nothing like that.
Very different.
But the naming scheme, I keep like mixing it up somehow. But gosh, like it's a little bit different, I think, in that, or maybe just the way he reads it. Both are very powerful in their own way, but like I was just bawling.
Yeah.
And like seeing his dad and like whatever, like this, we don't have the video clip of his dad, just the audio, but it was just, oh man, that documentary is fantastic. Everyone like definitely go watch it. It's so much more like powerful to see all of these stories from like his friends and people that knew him and loved him. It's just really gorgeous.
It's really amazing, like poetic justice that he did get to be famous after all, and that like his friends and loved ones were able to be so vocal about the love they had for him. So that's a nice, tiny silver lining, I guess.
Right.
But
and hopefully like he is helping make the world a better place for others, for like other queer kids growing up that can maybe live with a little bit less fear as a result.
Yeah. because this happened, it doesn't have to happen again. And yeah. During Matt's time in the hospital and during his funeral, anti-gay groups met for protests. Tensions were so high with death threats and hate speech that Dennis wore a bulletproof vest to his son's funeral.
Oof.
Yeah.
There were so many campaigns to smear Matt's name in order to apparently make people question whether or not he deserved to die. We absolutely support the idea of an imperfect victim because you're allowed to be imperfect and not be beaten and left to die tied to a fence on a cold fall night. One of those rumors we want to address is that Matt was a meth addict and that he had known Aaron and Russell before that night or had told them he would sell them drugs when he met them at the bar. We don't know for sure if Matt had ever used drugs, and we know he was struggling with self-medicating and alcohol. We do know none of his friends believed he was using or selling drugs, and the toxicology from his autopsy revealed he had not been on meth when he was murdered. So we'd like to put those rumors to rest. It's really just gross.
Yeah.
Regarding his legacy, Walt was right, and Matt had become famous and would not be forgotten. His murder brought national attention to hate crime legislation at both the state and federal level. In October of 2009, the United States Congress passed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, which was signed into law by President Barack Obama on October 28, 2009. Judy has since become an activist, starting the Matthew Shepard Foundation. According to the website, the foundation's mission is to, quote, amplify the story of Matthew Shepard to inspire individuals, organizations, and communities to embrace the dignity and equality of all people. Our work is an extension of Matt's passion to foster a more caring and just world. We share his story and embody his vigor for civil rights to change the hearts and minds of others to accept everyone as they are.
Yeah, that's a very sad story. I feel like it feels sadder. Like, obviously, every case that we discuss is incredibly sad when somebody has been victimized or potentially lost their life. But I feel like when it's so personal, resulting in his, like, from his sexuality and just who he was as a person, it seems like so much more cruel because, like, there's nothing wrong with, by the sounds of things, anything about Matt. Like,
No.
he seemed like a great,
Just lovely.
wonderful, sweet guy. So, like, to just, like, very personally attack him for that is extra disgusting.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the two perpetrators, Russell and Aaron, have both spoken since and seem to have a great deal of remorse for what they did, which I appreciate,
Well,
as
good.
they should. Like, it doesn't change
Yeah.
anything, but, like, I prefer that to somebody who is just like, oops, like, or, doesn't care at all. But, like,
Yeah.
part of the problem with their thinking is, at least Russell has said, like, just know this wasn't like we feel terrible for what we did to Matt, but, like, it really wasn't about him being gay. Like, we just kind of got carried away and we were trying to rob him. And he has claimed they were on meth and, like, whatever, which has never been proven or disproven. But
You'd think they would look into that, but
yeah,
either way,
yeah, 'cause
I mean,
they were caught that night. Like, police had detained them because they had the fight with the other two men.
yeah.
So, like, that's
So it's
possible.
like, did they
but,
seem high?
but
Like,
the deal is that they have this, like, spot that they don't see. They can say that they didn't do this out of hate, but they had called him the F word, and they
Yeah.
definitely were beating him up because Aaron claimed that he had touched him. And this came from a place of hate, and, like, they can't see that.
yeah, they tried to use the gay panic defense. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it came from a place of hate. And, like, well, the other thing we know just from seeing how murders pan out in general is, like, when it's a more personal thing, it's more of a brutal beating. Like, you're not going
Right.
to beat somebody to death in such a violent way just because you wanted to rob a random person or you were feeling fucked up. Like, you might beat them up, but that is, like, a very, like, you got to be trying pretty hard to
Right.
beat someone to death. Like,
Yeah, it's 21 times. That's not just, like,
Yeah.
once and you accidentally fractured their skull with that one hit. It was
Yeah.
20 times.
yeah.
And, like, part of what gets this for me is that I think like a lot of people believe they don't have bigoted ideas. And for these guys to say, no, like we're not homophobic, but you know, he touched our leg or whatever, like you are. And
you would never say those slurs if you were not.
Yeah, exactly. like that came from somewhere. And I think it's just so important that we all evaluate this in ourselves, because like we all think we're not racist. We all think we're not homophobic.
It's true. And we do all have unconscious biases of some kind or another. And I mean, just to assume that somehow you are devoid of that is like, it's just not human. Like we all grow up in our own ways, and we all have things to sort of undo just of how society was or how our family was when we were growing up. And there's little things in everyone. So we should all admit that.
Do the work. This one was a really heartbreaking one though.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to do it. Like I was like trying to find other cases that had happened on this day. And there was like an actress like in England who was murdered in her apartment that was never found. I was like, that sounds interesting, but there wasn't any deep, like there was hardly any information about it. And I was like, like this is too big of a thing to like take on. Like I just don't want to, but I'm glad I did, because I learned so much about it that I had I just had no idea. And I realized.
Right. And I had no idea either. And I think we hopefully share the story with people who have also not heard much or anything. You know, it's still important to share, despite the fact that it was like, unfortunately, twisted by different parties after the fact to support whatever agenda different people had in mind. But
so true.
Big picture, it's like you said, because this happened, maybe it has saved other gay kids after Matt from enduring such things. So, it's important to spread that story because of that, at least.
Yeah, and I think this changed people's minds.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that there are people that hadn't like identified what was wrong with their way of thinking about this sort of like gay people deserve to burn in hell, like kind of behavior. Like, I'm not going to say that it like changed people's minds that are like on the right wing and whatever. But I feel like
they might have not realized that the hate could lead to actual violence and death and been like, oh wait, no one deserves that.
Yes. Right. Like I know it impacted my parents, and they definitely were of this mentality of like, he shouldn't have been killed at least. Like at the very least, like I'm not saying that's much, but I think it like, struck a chord for so many people that this was just so incredibly senseless.
Yeah. And for some people who just really grew up in another world, baby steps are all you can hope for. So just like coming to that realization that he didn't deserve this is a step forward anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, just so many things about this, like the fact that they did this to him and that they like left him tied to the fence in the cold. And it's like, I don't know how much people, like we don't know how much people in a coma like are capable of experiencing like cold and such.
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
Maybe that like that's got to be like uncomfortable. And like, I don't know. I think there's like so much like research done that people in a coma are still like aware of their surroundings. Like I do believe he heard Walt speaking. I believe he heard Walt saying, it's time to let go. Like you don't have to keep fighting. Like we're going to take over this for you. Like just, you can let go now. Like he heard that, like he let go several hours later. So he was left out in this field for 18 hours.
I've heard so many stories about people who were talked to about like, it's okay to let go. And then they did pass away shortly thereafter. So I do feel like there is something getting through in people speaking to them, which
I think so too. But like, it's just horrific. It's like they had so many chances to like rectify what they had done, like after it's like, okay, we beat him, like we got carried away, like that sucks. Let's at least bring him back. I don't think that he could have been saved since they had crushed his brainstem. I don't think there would have been any bringing him back, but he continued out to bleed out so long, like maybe he would have had like less quality of life, but like perhaps like there would have been something they could have done to save him. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. Maybe not.
Either way, I mean, you have to like have that possibility in mind that it's like, obviously we shouldn't just abandon this dude. Like if it has gone too far, I mean, hello, obviously even anonymously call something in and then run away. Like you can't just leave someone like that. That's really horrific.
Yeah.
So what are you watching this week? Anything crimey.
Okay, I did watch a couple of things somehow. I
Oh,
made
wow.
time.
Look at you.
While I was making flower crowns. So I started watching Pretty Hard Cases, which is a Canadian show. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but is that the one that was like, what area was this at? This was in Ontario?
It's shot in Toronto, I believe, when I looked up on IMDb.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not too familiar, but I guess I've heard a little something. Let's hear more.
Yeah, it's on Netflix and it's cute.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of The Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, like in kind of like vibe and humor, where there's like kind of like the like serious nerdy cop and then like the like one that's like getting things done. And like they kind of like disapprove of each other's like styles, but they like kind of start to figure it out and actually become partners. And the one actress, I've never seen her in anything that I've recognized, but she does like have some maybe like Canadian shows and stuff on IMDb. But the other actress was on Orange is the New Black. I think her name was
which
Cindy
one was she?
on it. She was like, I don't quite remember many of her story arcs, but I remember she was friends with like Poussey when she died in the prison riot. Is that how she died?
Yeah,
I think. But she was like very good friends with her. And she's like really
Okay.
tall. And I can't think of anything else she's been in, but she's just great. She's so funny in it. And also Ronnie from Schitt's Creek is in it.
Oh, great. Well, this sounds good. It sounds like I think we did have another possibly similar Canadian movie that may have been a bit more serious. I'm not sure how silly this one was, but
This is very silly.
Okay, so it may have been a bit more serious, but the other one that we had was a Quebec movie about two cop, dudes that were very different and whatever. But this was Francophone, and it was also dudes. So it would be cool to see, a Canadian girl version.
Yes, for sure. It's really cute and lighthearted. It's not like super hard hitting, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny. And then I also tried watching Munsters, the Rob Zombie movie.
Rob Zombie. Okay. Is it a movie or series?
It's a movie.
Oh, okay. Was it bad?
And it was really bad.
Oh, no.
It was unwatchable.
This is weird. This is a weird thing to personally like. I think Rob Zombie is a good filmmaker and has made some great stuff. I feel like when
I still have nightmares about House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah, that's scary for sure. I feel like when he indulges too much in his like Rob Zombieism and just makes it like you can go down a rabbit hole there where you make it a bit too much and you're like, this movie is just whatever. But I don't know what I thought was going to happen with the Munsters, but I know it's not scary. It's a silly sitcom like, and it doesn't sound like his realm, So
yeah, it's definitely not scary. It's silly and directionless.
Well,
there's kind of maybe a plot, but there's like just like a bunch of like tiny conversations that don't amount to anything and aren't interesting. And I don't know, I don't want to offend anybody who liked it, but it only had it like a 4.3 on IMDb. And I feel
sounds like it might be better just to watch the original.
Yeah. And like, I feel like the people who like watched it the day it came out are probably like people that had high expectations that were excited to see Cassandra Peterson, who played Elvira. She's in it. And I was there for her. Like, that's how I found out. Like, I follow her Instagram. I just adore her. And I love Elvira so much. So I was like there for her, and she could not save it. Her part was too small. I gave up after I saw her. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I cannot finish this movie. So how about you? Are you watching anything?
I am not. Certainly not anything crimey. But I will say that our countdown has started for spooky and scary Halloween movies, which we made a big master list of, I guess there's like 62 movies in there. So like, if you all want to hear our recommendations for this season and what we are watching when we're not podcasting or watching crimey stuff, check out our TikTok. We might also have this stuff shared on other social media platforms if you avoid TikTok, but like mostly
we'll have
TikTok,
it on Instagram
you'll see
stories or reels too.
Yeah. Cool. So check that out and see all of our cool, scary and less scary, just spooky Halloween movie selections for the month. There are lots of great ones.
Yeah. And we did like a family-friendly section because I know that there feels like there should be a crossover between true crime and horror, but that's not always true.
No.
And it depends on my headspace. Like lately I've been kind of leaning a bit more on horror because I feel like very safe in a like secured building for the first time in a long time. When I am like living in a place that is on the ground floor and people could like climb in through a window or like any number of things, I cannot watch anything scary. I get too freaked out. I just can't handle it. So for those of you who can't do horror, we also have like a family friendly section. And if you don't have a family and you just like watching Hocus Pocus, that section's for you.
That's also fine. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's enough murder for 1 week. If you need more, you can always find us on murdermurder.news for the latest breaking true crime news articles every day of the week.
You can also find us on Instagram at MurderMurderNews, on Twitter at MurderNews, on TikTok at MurderMurderNews, and on Facebook, where you search for Murder Murder News, you will see our page pop up.
And when you're on Facebook searching for Murder Murder News, you'll also see our group pop up. You'll want to join us there to chat about all things true crime, but also to stay in the loop about any upcoming events like the Pacific Northwest True Crime Fest this weekend, as well as our book club selections. We're just digging into The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and we hope you'll join us on Zoom Sunday, October 30th to chat about the book. And this one I think is going to be like a costumes recommended book club meeting because we are Halloween weekend and let's party.
Yeah, we will definitely make this into a Halloween party. So please wear your costume if you come. We'll certainly talk about the book, but we'll also just like be spooky and have
it's
Halloween
time.
Cocktails and
definitely
whatever.
Find a nice way to close the spooky season.
Yes. And I started the book. It's really good so far.
Ooh, I can't wait. I haven't started yet, but I'm sure it will be great.
Very Halloween themed. Do not forget that if you love our show, you need to let us know by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or on your podcast listening platform of choice. 5-star reviews really help us stay afloat. They help new fans find our show and help let us know which content you've been loving the most so we can keep creating more of what you like.
Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Bye, spooky friends.